Nazi comparisons always backfire. That is a basic rule of politics. And yet it is violated again and again. In 2018, Boris Johnson, then Foreign Secretary, caused a stir by remarking that Putin would capitalize on the upcoming World Cup in Russia like Adolf Hitler did on the 1936 Berlin Olympics. In 2014, even one of the most experienced German politicians, then Federal Minister Wolfgang Schäuble, was drawn to such a comparison. With a view to the annexation of the Ukrainian Black Sea Peninsula Crimea, ordered by Russian President Vladimir Putin, the CDU politician said, Hitler already took over the Sudetenland with such methods and much more. Similar statements came from former US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and the British heir to the throne, Prince Charles. Since the beginning of the Russian attack on Ukraine, such comparisons have been heard more and more frequently. Putin is said to be almost like Hitler. Is there something to it? There is consensus among historians that equating Putin and Hitler is absolutely inadmissible. Hitler was primarily responsible for the Shoah, a crime against humanity that was unprecedented in its radical concentration and goal-oriented organization. 6 million European Jews were murdered within 3 years. In addition, Hitler started the Second World War with at least 60 million dead. These are completely different dimensions than any of the crimes that Putin may be accused of. But to compare does not mean to equate, as the historian Heinrich August Winkler clarified in an article for the German newspaper Zeit entitled What Connects Putin with Hitler? In historical research, comparing always also means working out differences. When this happens, it is an accepted scientific method. It's extremely difficult to draw any concrete lessons from history. But in the best case, such a comparison can reveal certain patterns that help to assess current events. Götz Ali is one of the most recognized Holocaust researchers and the author of groundbreaking works such as Why the Germans, Why the Jews? He also emphasized in an interview with the German press agency, you can only compare Hitler and Putin to a very limited extent, that has to be clear. But I think it's legitimate to name certain parallels. For him, this includes the preparation and justification of war. Hitler too had enormous troops deployed while at the same time it was assured the Führer wants nothing but peace. Hitler justified the attack on Poland with the protection of Germans living abroad who had to be protected from fictitious Polish terror. Putin bases his war of aggression on the lie that he must put a stop to genocide against Russians in Donbas in eastern Ukraine. Just as the Russian state media is now consistently glossing over the war in the Ukraine as a special military operation. On September 1st in 1939, Minister of Propaganda Joseph Goebbels issued the instruction not to use the word war, but only to use one counter-strike at a time to speak about Polish attack or the attack on Poland. And the historian Winkler also sees striking parallels between Austria's annexation, the annexation of the Sudetenland, and the smashing of the rest of the Czech Republic on the one hand, and the annexation of Crimea, the separation of significant areas of the Donbas, and the current war of aggression against Ukraine on the other. The analogy of the procedure is striking, Winkler wrote in the Zeit. But the parallels go much further. Even as a historian, that is, as a politician with history, Putin comes across as a learned student of Adolf Hitler. Putin is also trying to historically underpin his aim of restoring a supposed former empire. Winkler refers to Putin's essay on the historical unity of Russians and Ukrainians published in 2021. Just as Putin is claiming a Russian zone of influence, Hitler and the Nazis also referred to a ban on intervention by non-regional powers, for example in Czechoslovakia. Winkler also feels reminded of Hitler by Putin's tirades against the alleged neo-Nazis and drug addicts in Kiev. Ali sees its similarity, but at the same time urges caution. Of course, it is completely nonsensical for Putin to claim that neo-Nazis are in government in Kiev. But, as in Russia, there are also very tough right-wing radicals in Ukraine. You shouldn't ignore this problem, especially in Germany. The largest Ukrainian Nazi collaborator and anti-Semite, Stepan Bandera, now has 40 monuments in Ukraine. And you have to be clear, after When the Germans invaded Ukraine in 1941, collaboration was very widespread there. The Germans had 200,000 Ukrainian auxiliaries, at least 40,000 of whom directly participated in shootings of Jews. This collaboration decreased progressively eastwards. In eastern Ukraine was it already very low. It hardly existed in today's Russia, and there were no Russian auxiliary police for the German occupiers. One shouldn't deny this historical background. That's what Putin alludes to, at least subtly. What worries Ali most is his impression that Putin is increasingly digging himself in and disconnecting from reality. The stony face, the bizarrely long tables not only when talking to foreign state guests but also to close associates, the public scolding of his advisors. The strange, apparently jovial appearance with stewardesses. And then his rhetoric, in which Russia increasingly appears as a victim of a Western world conspiracy. That seems crazy. It's sometimes like Charlie Chaplin's film The Great Dictator. We're dealing with a person who has developed into an autocrat and tolerates little contradiction. Alternative leaders are eliminated. There are no visible successors in the government apparatus, Ali says. Italian dictator Benito Mussolini was deposed by the fascist Grand Council in 1943, and according to Ali, that would not have been possible in Nazi Germany. And for Putin's Russia too, it is currently difficult to imagine that an alternative would form within the leadership of the state. In post-Soviet Russia, there is no longer even a Politburo. The state is completely geared towards Putin as a person. Putin is a lonely decision maker. And he's someone who can't afford to show weakness. This constellation can lead to irrational radicalization and to an increasingly obsessive inflating of enemy images, says Ali. And he says, now in his speech, he has already used a phrase like the final solution to the Ukraine question, and that sounds dangerous. Winkler also writes that the self-stylization of becoming a victim of powerful enemies connects ultra-nationalists like Putin and Hitler. However, Ali emphatically warns against the claim that Putin is the new Hitler. You can't talk to someone like that. Instead, all channels of communication should be kept open. I also have my problems with the Schröder bashing, he says. Gerhard Schröder will certainly not have said, Vladimir, keep it up. And the Russian Orthodox Church, Patriarch Kirill, did that. Israel, China and India have also not joined the sanctions. Possibly, hopefully, that can strengthen their role as mediators. That's worth bearing in mind. The chances of pacifiers and peacemakers who didn't clearly take sides might still be useful, Ali hopes. Because we have to contain the conflict and support Ukraine, also with weapons, but at the same time we have to work towards a peaceful solution. This is linked to the hope that relations with Russia can improve again in 5, 10 or 20 years. And this is really a very difficult question. That's why I wanted to bring this up. Although besides the Johnson comment on the Putin-Hitler stuff is not directly linked to the UK, but this is about all of us. And I hope I could give you some insight. I got a lot of stuff there from the German press agency, and that's a very reliable source I often use. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.